I think he's probably the foremost expert on the planet in communication, not just negotiation. The thing I've learned most from your work, though, is the ability to speak and to communicate. What I've really worked on the last decade is my listening skills. How important is active listening and listening in general to persuasion and connection with people?
How do we make decisions? We escalate. If we're not heard the first time we talk normally, we try to get listened to. It proved to us that that didn't work. So now we're going to escalate our tone of voice. We're going to escalate our rhetoric. We're going to escalate our adjectives. That doesn't work. We either give up or then that's when we start to get violent. But it all started from a need to be heard. And like that translates. My team, we make more deals because our focus is on hearing the other side out to start with. It's a universal need of human beings. How much time do you have for somebody who's not listening to you? Like zero. There's a whole variety of subtle nuances, invisible nuances that affect the proactive, not just active, proactive listening starts to kick into gear. It seems less efficient. And then suddenly you've accelerated 15 steps. You don't even know how to happen. I know the magic's coming by just these subtle little tweaks.
What are a couple of tweaks you use? It's one thing to be listening. It's another thing for them to get the message and feeling that you're listening as well, right?
The secret, easiest one, simplest, is the mirror. Repeating the last 1 to 3 words of what somebody has just said. This is the best one to open up your teenager. There have been so many moms who suddenly open up their daughters. The kid comes home from school, how was your day? Fine. What'd you do? I don't remember. You didn't indicate to them that you even listened to the answer to the first question. The parent's response should be, fine. Even though you only gave me 1 word, I just proved that I listened to it. Now that tiny moment tends to open people up very quickly. You feel like your intention to do a job as a parent to display interest is there. Yes, it is. But your method was poor because by following up immediately with your next question, you made them think you weren't listening to the first answer. And so the mirror is like the first way to get your foot in the door to open the communication.
Wow, what a great answer. So, hey guys, listen, we're all trying to get more productive. And the question is, how do you find a way to get an edge? I'm a big believer that if you're getting mentoring or you're in an environment that causes growth, a growth-based environment, that you're much more likely to grow and you're going to grow faster. And that's why I love Growth Day. Growth Day is an app that my friend Brendan Burchard has created that I'm a big fan of. Write this down, growthday.com/ed. So if you want to be more productive, by the way, he's asked me, I post videos in there every single Monday that get your day off to the right start. He's got about $5,000, $10,000 worth of courses that are in there that come with the app. Also, some of the top influencers in the world are all posting content in there on a regular basis, like having the Avengers of personal development and business in one app. And I'm honored that he asked me to be a part of it as well and contribute on a weekly basis, and I do. So go over there and get signed up. You're going to get a free, tuition-free voucher to go to an event with Brendan and myself and a bunch of other influencers as well. So you get a free event out of it also. So go to growthday.com/ed. That's growthday.com/ed. Welcome back to the show, everybody. So I wanted to have this man on for a couple of years. I'm really big fan of his work. Not just from the negotiation standpoint, but from a communication standpoint. And he spent 24 years in the FBI Crisis Negotiation Unit. He's done over 150 different international hostage type negotiations. I think he's probably the foremost expert on the planet in communication, not just negotiation. His work is unique. He obviously brings an experience and a perspective that really nobody else on the planet has, based on what I just told you. And I'm just a big fan of his work. So, by the way, I got a book too. It's been out for a while, but I read it when it came out, called Never Split the Difference. I highly recommend you guys all get that. We're going to break that stuff down today with Chris Voss. So, Chris, welcome to the show, finally.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, I don't even know where to begin with you because there's so much to it. But when I introduced you, I said it the way I meant it. I think most everything in life is probably negotiation, but I know most everything in life involves communication.
Right, there you go.
Yeah, and you've communicated with all types of different people. But the first thing I wanted to ask you is I saw a clip of you recently, which surprised me because I thought I was a great reader of people. I thought I was. And as I've gotten older, I think I realized maybe not quite as good as I thought. And this guy that kind of hammered me, actually kind of almost, I'd call it almost scammed me in something. He kept saying, man, I want to make this a win-win when he kept opening up. I want to make it a win-win. And And I heard you say that's like a red flag for you anytime
Yeah.
somebody says win-win. So I know it's an odd place to start, but why? I just got to know why personally.
Yeah, because the person who's going to manipulate us has learned that people really drop their guard when they hear that. I
Hmm,
mean, it's one of those things, win-win, and also you got to watch out for the F word, fair.
fair.
And you can get people to drop their guard.
Hmm,
And somebody who's really desirous of collaboration. I mean, the people that'll take advantage of you, they learn that, like, if I say win-win enough, I mean, they're gonna like, oh wow, okay, they'll be hypnotized.
hmm,
And so mutual win, mutual benefit is definitely the goal.
okay.
And so there's a difference between, are you willing to collaborate, or are you just using that, are you weaponizing
Hmm,
the phrase? And there's a few things out there that disguise as collaboration, but the people have a tendency to weaponize it against you. And
hmm.
win-win is one of those phrases. And without fail, the sooner somebody uses it as a specific phrase and the more often they use it, they're bad news.
But
And
yet you recommend, Chris, in your work to use the word fair as much as you possibly can, don't
well,
you?
now be cautious of it.
Okay.
And because fair is really lacking in criteria.
Okay.
Fair is like beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And so if somebody's accusing me of being unfair, I'll say, all right, so let's rewind. I want you to be treated fairly at all times. And so anytime that you get the sense that I'm not, let's go back to it.
Hmm,
Now that's a different characterization of somebody saying, like, look, I just want what's fair.
hmm,
Now that's a highly manipulative thing to say. You're probably gonna drop your guard. You're gonna question yourself,
hmm.
because the vast majority of human beings think of themselves as fair. So anytime it's implied that we're being unfair, we'll have a tendency to give in. So there's a lot, there's more nuance to that.
Hmm.
Anytime you hear the F word, it should prick up your ears and understand what it really means. And mostly there's no criteria to fair.
Okay, that's fascinating to me because those are two of the things this particular individual used with me.
Yeah.
Was win-win and fair, fair, fair. And I have to
Ooh,
tell you,
yeah.
you're very much right. And by the way, today, guys, when we're talking, we're not going to talk a lot about FBI releases. We're going to talk about communication, being able to build rapport with people,
Yeah.
persuasion, connection. And I think a good place to start, I know you've done this a lot, but for my audience, I think I like concepts and then you fill it in with specificity. And in the book,
Yeah.
um, Never Split the Difference, you talk about there really being like three types of personalities in negotiation. And you can
Right.
correct me if I'm wrong because I read the book, quite a while ago and then I reviewed it for here. But there's the accommodator, the assertive, and the analyst.
Right. Yep.
Okay. What are those? And is that true of just humans in general? Like, is my son one of those three? Is my wife one of those three? Are you one of those three? Does everybody sort
Yeah.
of come prepackaged when you're communicating with them? Forget negotiating, even though that's sort of what it is. Is everyone one of those?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, does that define and constrain you? No. Depends upon how much you learn. But your default innate conflict type is fight, flight, make friends. And of the wiring that we've inherited from the cavemen that survived fought, ran, or made friends.
Hmm,
And those that did neither died and have no ancestors.
hmm,
Now, this is cut across the globe. It really does.
hmm.
And it's based on something called the Thomas Kilmann Conflict Mode Instrument, TKI.
Okay.
I first got introduced to that at Harvard, and TKI divided people into 5 types. And my Harvard brethren threw out 2 of the 3,
Okay.
2 of the 5.
Hmm.
And Bob Manukin principally led this. I'm a big fan of Bob's book, Beyond Winning, by the way.
Okay.
And so one day I said, okay, I buy in, but I want to know why you threw out the 2 types and are left with those 3.
Okay.
And he said, because the other 2 are learned, they're combinations of the 3, and these are the 3 basic types.
Hmm.
Now, TKI uses slightly different terms,
Hmm.
and we changed the terms, the questions a little bit to come up with our own model. Like, for example, the accommodator or the assertive was known as the competitive type. And I thought that meant, all right, so the other types aren't competitive. And I found all three types to be very competitive. So that, that was a bit of a red herring.
Mhm.
So a fight, flight, make friends.
Mhm.
And then does the world split evenly into thirds? Is it rule of thumb? Chinese, Indian, we have given this test to literally 10,000 people globally. I saw it split up evenly into thirds when they were doing it at Harvard, a global audience.
Mhm.
Harvard students are drawn from all over the world.
Mhm.
In the business schools that we taught in, a global audience. American business schools draw from all over the world. That is, the US is the place to get an MBA, whether you're in China, whether you're in India. And then one time we were doing some training a number of years ago, all Chinese Development Bank executives. We're training them in Germany. It sounds like the UN of training, right?
Yeah.
But we're told in advance, Chinese this, Chinese that, and we saw all three types manifested in the Chinese.
Mhm.
So what does that mean? Typically, it means your impasse is usually type mismatch and a misinterpretation of a dynamic. Most common one is silence. I go dead silent on you. I'm an analyst. I'm thinking. And Lex Friedman, very analytical dude, he's talking about silence on his podcast one time, and he says, to him, intimate silence is a shared intimacy.
Mhm.
You go silent with Lex, the analyst, he feels more bonded to you. You're both comfortable in the silence. He shares it. Accommodator, relationship hope focused, all communication. The meanest thing they could do is to go silent. An accommodator signals fury by withdrawing from communication. So imagine accommodator and an
Yeah.
analyst. The analyst is going like, "Would you just shut up? I'm trying to think." And the accommodator's going, "Oh, the analyst Lex is furious at me. That's why he's not talking." And so it's that dynamic that's usually a problem with impasse.
How do you, and I know it's more complicated than one question, but let's just take one type, the assertive.
Yeah.
How do you deduce that you're dealing with an assertive, in a relatively quick period of time? I know there's the questions, but is there a way that I'm dealing with an assertive right now?
The only person that's going to sound like an assertive is an assertive. I'm a natural born assertive. Donald Trump's great poster child, not taking a position, good or bad. He's
Yeah.
a great example of the assertive.
Okay.
Somebody once told me when I was being my natural default assertive self that talking to me was like getting hit in the face with a brick.
Mm.
I mean, we are blunt, we are direct.
Mhm.
We see ourselves simply as direct and honest. You feel like you're getting hit in the face with a brick.
Mm.
Now, the accommodator, neither the accommodator nor the analyst will ever come off that way. Where you might get confused, the analysts, analytical by nature, they see the accommodator as a smiling, happy-go-lucky type, making more deals. Now, the deals always with accommodators always have implementation problems because they're hope focused, not detail focused. Hope is not a strategy. Hope is a principal strategy of the accommodator. So the analyst goes, how does this guy, just by smiling, make more deals than I make?
Mm.
And they go like, oh, this person smiles a lot and it
Mm.
seems to help. And
Mm.
so, the analyst will often be mistaken for an accommodator because they're smart enough to change their demeanor.
Mm.
So that's sometimes you could get confused between those two types.
So the assertive, so everybody, it's accommodator, assertive, and analyst. The
Right.
assertive is the easiest to see coming, is basically what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
There,
You're gonna
yeah,
you're
yeah.
gonna they're an elephant coming through the jungle.
Well,
They're on their way.
what's interesting, I guarantee you, for me, it just happened too. When you began to describe the assertive, I immediately flashed to two or three friends of mine immediately. I'm like, yep, assertive, assertive. And I guarantee you everybody did in that moment as well. So, hey guys, I want to jump in here for a second and talk about change and growth. And, by the way, it's no secret how people get ahead in life or how they grow. And also taking a look at the future. If you want to change your future, you got to change the things you're doing. If you continue to do the same things, you're probably going to produce the same results. But if you get into a new environment, where you're learning new things and you're around other people that are growth oriented, you're much more likely to do that yourself. And that's why I love Growth Day. Write this down for a second. growthday.com/Ed. My friend Brendan Bouchard has created the most incredible personal development and business app that I've ever seen in my life. Everything from goal setting software to personal accountability, journaling, courses, thousands of dollars worth of courses in there as well. I create content in there on Mondays where I contribute, as do a whole bunch of other influencers, like the Avengers of influencers and business minds in there. It's the Netflix for high achievers or people that want to be high achievers. So go check it out. My friend Brennan's made it very affordable, very easy to get involved. Go to growthday.com/ed. That's growthday.com/ed. The thing I've learned most from your work, though, and this is where I want to pull apart. So everybody forget negotiation. This is just life skills right here. And I think I have been, by and large, terrible at this most of my life, what I'm about to ask you about. And I think I'm an assertive, number one, probably. And although I don't have a lot of abilities, I really don't. One of them is the ability to speak and to communicate.
Right.
And I think oftentimes I rely on that as opposed to what I've really worked on the last decade is my listening skills. And I have found, like, I'll do a retreat with a bunch of people that'll come in, for example, for business, right? And I'll talk for 3 days, give them the best information, engage them, train them up, motivate them, inspire them. And they leave, and I think they think it's good. This is back in the day. And then another buddy of mine would come in. He's not even really that prepared. They sit around and BS for 3 days, and they ask them a bunch of questions. They all talk, and they leave, and it gets back to me. They thought that was the greatest retreat they've ever been to in their lives. And it felt to me like it's probably because they were listened to more. So it's just a concept as a negotiator, as a communicator, as a man, as a human. How important is active listening and listening in general to persuasion and connection with people? Because I think it's the lost art.
It's an advanced skill. And in many cases, like as an assertive, and you sound very much like an assertive, your description for a variety of reasons. Assertives are time is money people. And so if you're given instructions, you're like, I'm going to jam, time is money, every moment, no moment can be wasted. I'm going to download as much value as I possibly can.
Good.
And I'm not going to waste a moment not giving these people value for each and every minute they're here. And so that becomes a bit of a deluge to start with. And it's hard to keep up with. It's everybody on my team, we got that problem in our instruction. We're so want to give you nothing but valuable content. And so then listening, like the tiniest little things, how much time do you have for somebody who's not listening to you? Like zero. And you're going to notice it right away. And so in these tiny moments, being listened to actually increases analysis on both sides. It gives people an opportunity to do a little bit more processing. And so there's a whole variety of subtle nuances, invisible nuances that effective, proactive, not just active, proactive listening starts to kick into gear. And so it seems less efficient. And then suddenly you've accelerated 15 steps. You don't even know how it happened. And that's, and to me, and it's one of the, I possess that's the magic. I know the magic's coming by just these subtle little tweaks. So
what are a couple of tweaks you use? There's some active listening skills you'll use to let someone know you are, right? So it's one thing to be listening. It's another thing for them to get the message and feeling that you're listening as well, right?
Well, the secret, easiest one, simplest, is the mirror. Repeating the last 1 to 3 words of what somebody has just said. And this is the best one to open up your teenager with. Like there have been so many moms who suddenly open up their daughters because, the kid comes home from school. How was your day? Fine. What'd you do? I don't remember. You didn't indicate to them that you even listened to the answer to the first question. So you say, how was your day? They go, fine. The parent's response should be, fine. Which is, even though you only gave me 1 word, I just proved that I listened to it. Now that tiny moment tends to open people up very quickly because normally you got a list of questions and you're checking them off the list. Mom, Dad, I'm going to say, how was your day? What did you do? Boom, boom. You feel like your intention to do a job as a parent to display interest is there. Yes, it is. But your method was poor because by following up immediately with your next question, you made them think you weren't listening to the first answer. And so the mirror is like the first way to get your foot in the door to open the communication up.
You guys, this is why you should be following Chris's work, why you should bring him in to speak, why you should get Never Split the Difference. That alone is simple, and I don't do
Yeah.
it. I don't do it. Here's what I do. I just learned from you recently. I am in the middle of a rather intense negotiation on something right now, and I allowed it to escalate to where it got heated. And the advantage to that, though, is I got to use one of your techniques, and I want everyone to have you elaborate on this, because I think the foundation of what I've learned is just allowing someone to feel heard or be heard is so critical. And we'll talk about that in the negotiations hostage-wise next, but I want to ask you this. So anyway, it got elevated. This was just like a week ago, even though I learned this from you a little while ago. And the guy said something to me about what he wouldn't do, and then sort of a statement about me that wasn't flattering.
Yeah.
And the normal me would have been just to annihilate him, right? Verbally, which would have made me feel good in the moment and gotten us further away. And I'm not kidding you. I was sitting about 30 feet from where I am right now. And I knew I was having you on the show in a few weeks. And so I was even more familiar with your work. And I actually said to him, I said, I won't say his name. I said to him, I said, listen, you must have a great reason for feeling that way and saying that. What is it? And he just opened up, and it allowed him to talk. And basically what it did is it bought me time to think about other things, but I got so much more information in the next 7 minutes from him than I'd gotten in 3 2-hour full sessions previously. And we connected pretty deeply during that moment. So can you talk about the question to ask when someone says that to you? Because I probably phrased it wrong, and why it matters so much.
Yeah, that is like the universal magic label. Like, no matter, somebody's arguing with you, somebody's agreeing with you, like there's never going to be an instance when you can't say it. You said you must have a great reason for saying that. A version of that is it seems like you have a reason for saying that. Seems like you have a reason for doing it. Like somebody just calls you the worst name they could possibly call you. Seems like you got a great reason for saying it. And they open up. Somebody completely agrees with what you just said. Seems like you got a great reason for saying it. And they open up. Like that is like, if I could teach people just that one label and say, here's what I want you to do for the rest of today. Nothing else comes out of your mouth. Just today. It seems like you got a great reason for saying that. You start that tomorrow morning first thing. At the end of the day, you got to say it 15 times. Post on my Instagram what happened at the FBI Negotiator. Tell me what kind of day you had. I guarantee you, you're going to have a cooler day than you ever could have imagined. And first of all, well done. And that's a great example. Like, and it bought you time.
Yep.
And it stopped you from, counter launching your nuclear missiles and mutually assured destruction, right?
Yes,
Russians
you're right.
and the Americans.
Can I tell you the other thing it did? It not only connected us. I'm working on some content I'm creating right now that I just stumbled into in my life the last 5 years, where I talk about changing the lens in your life when you're engaging with people, of switching it, because we all see them and our relationship with them through our lens, our filter, our lens. And so I'm creating work right now that talks about creating an ability just to be a better human, about switch the lens and have your mom see you through how your mom sees you. How does she react to you and change the lens is the bottom line. And what it actually did in that moment for me, so I was so angry, is it changed the lens, and I actually saw me from him. And when I started to see what he sees in me, it helped me better understand his position, but also how to respond and react and connect with him, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp, everybody. And I'm so grateful that we are, because, I really believe in therapy. And so many people ask me, what do all the people on your show have in common? Because I've had athletes, entertainers, scientists, political figures, business leaders, self-improvement folks. And what do they all have in common? The vast majority of them have been to therapy, and it's helped them. And so therapy can help you in a lot of different ways. It could be that you just really need to work through a challenge or a problem you've got right now. Maybe you just need somebody to talk to. but maybe you're going through a really difficult, dark time and you need some professional help to work your way through it. And that's why I love therapy, but especially BetterHelp, because you can do it online. And if you don't vibe with your therapist, they'll switch you out and get you somebody that you click with instantly. It can make a big difference in your life. So whether you're going through just kind of a difficult time and want to talk out loud about it, therapy is the way to go. And I love BetterHelp. So never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/edshow today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/edshow. Dr. Phil told me this, and I want to know the validity of it or how valid it is. He told me that in hostage negotiation, that the number one criteria, so correct if it's wrong and then tell us how important it is, okay? But I think it's a bold statement. That in hostage negotiation, maybe he heard this from you, I don't know. That in hostage negotiation, the number one criteria of getting the hostages back, if everything were ranked, is not that the needs or the demands were met of the person or anything like that, but that the actual hostage taker felt listened to for why they did it. True or false? And if it's not true, how important is that anyway?
True and true. And I love that he caught that. He and I have had, conversation in the past. He's been generous to me, and he's mentioned my name a couple of times, which I'm grateful for. And that's it, 1,000%. And while it sounds crazy, if you consider human beings, how do we make decisions? We escalate. And the first thing that if we're not heard, then the first time we talk normally, we try to get listened to. All right, so it proved to us that didn't work. So now we're gonna escalate our tone of voice. We're gonna escalate our rhetoric. We're gonna escalate our adjectives. That doesn't work. Then we either give up, or then that's when we start to get violent. But it all started from a need to be heard to begin with, and like that translates. I mean, that's why, like my team, we make more deals because our focus is on hearing the other side out to start with. And it's a universal need of human beings.
That's just striking. Everyone, just step back from a second, everybody, and hear that. The number one thing in getting a hostage back in a negotiation is that person feels you've heard why they took the hostages. Do you think, by and large, I was just thinking about this, people in my life, just right now occurred to me. I don't believe there's these huge differences and all this other stuff, but do you think, by and large, women are better at this than men, just intuitively? Have you had any work with that? Like, I'm just thinking, like, in my life, my female friends certainly listen better to me. There's this great bit right now that Brian Regan has, this comedy bit where his buddy's going through a divorce and he goes and plays 5 hours of golf with his buddy, and he gets home, Regan gets home, and his wife says to him, "So how's Dave doing?" And Regan goes, I don't know. She goes, "Didn't you just spend 5 hours with him in the golf cart?" He goes, "Yeah." And she says, "Well, is he dating anybody?" He goes, "I don't know." You didn't ask if he's dating anybody? He goes, "No." He goes, "I know he's got a new driver." That's it, but yet I would think if two ladies were together for 5 hours on the golf course, they might listen to each other a little bit better. Maybe that's not gender specific at all, but what are your thoughts on that? I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah. All right. So let me 3 parts to the answer.
Okay.
Nature versus nurture. I haven't seen hard science that says that nature gives them a head start. Now, nurture does.
Okay.
Women are conditioned very early on. Like a little girl gets into trouble, and the females in her life, the female mentors are going to be like, "Look, you gotta learn your soft skills." Little girl gets into a fight with a little boy, whoops his ass, because pre-adolescence they're kind of even physically. But the women mentors know eventually the little boy's going to pass you by, and you're going to have soft power to win. So tremendous amount of nurturing to begin with. Little boy gets into a fight, goes home, and the male mentors are like, go back there and don't ever come home here again crying and complaining. You go back there and you stand up and you fight. So it's a different kind of nurture. Now, the black swan skills, women pick them up faster than men do. And at the top end, we see no difference in gender performance. But I do know consistently that women pick this methodology faster than men. So my hypothesis is the pre-work. They got more pre-work in the nurturing to begin with. And then like I said, at the top end, if you're coachable, man or woman, it doesn't make any difference.
Funny you said hypothesis because I wanted to ask you about that. One of the things I've seen you say that just is fascinating to me is a way to accelerate a negotiation or a conversation with somebody. I was surprised by this. Um, and it could be a friendly negotiation, like, hey, where are we going to dinner tonight? Or it could be a hostage negotiation, but is to actually state a hypothesis early in the conversation about what you believe they're feeling or thinking
Yeah.
in order to get them to open up. That surprised me because I thought you would just want somebody to talk. So talk about the hypothesis theory of accelerating a negotiation or a connection.
The emphasis on that word originally came from my son, Brandon. And he said, like, look, we got to get people to test their thinking. And if you make an assumption, you might be, you're kind of scared to test it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the reason why there's phrases criticizing assumptions is because our lack of testing our assumptions.
Hmm.
So he said, if we can help people, if you say hypothesis to begin with, that requires some testing. And it accepts that you could be wrong, and your ego's not going to get blown apart if you are wrong. That's part of the scientific method, if you will. So then you throw out a hypothesis, and intention has a smell. Your intent is to collaborate with somebody. And I'm not saying for sure that this is where you're coming from, but kind of seems that way. And then if I'm dead wrong, and somebody once jumped down my throat. I said, "You sound angry." They were angry, but the guy jumped down my throat. I'm not angry.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I said, well, I didn't say you were angry. I said, you sound angry.
Hmm.
And how he seemed, how he sounded, how he was coming off was inarguable. I was just making an observation. And that
Mhm.
actually dialed him down completely to begin with. So if your
Mhm.
thinking starts with, I got a hypothesis I want to test, the other side gets to feel that you're willing to be corrected and you're not trying to be judgmental.
So you're saying it's okay to say, hey, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I think you're saying is this, or what I think you're feeling is this. That's opening
Yeah,
doors, not closing them.
yeah. The intent by that's 1,000% right.
Okay.
Now, there's a couple of sort of nuances in the wording that I would change.
Okay.
The I is a self-centering word,
Okay.
so it's a little more effective to say, you seem upset versus I'm guessing you're upset.
Okay.
They're tiny little, each word hits people emotionally different, and there's some context to it. And I tends to be self-centering, and as a general rule, you want to avoid it when you're trying to make it all about the other person.
Mm. Mm.
But then there are times when you drop the word I in. There's no word that in and of itself is good or bad. Yes isn't good or bad, no isn't good or bad. It's all context, and I is one of those words. Just understand it tends to be self-centering. There are moments when you want to self-center, but when you're demonstrating listening, you're trying to put all the emphasis on the other person. The more you can eliminate the word I, the better off you're going to be.
Very good. I noticed when in your hypothetical there, when the guy came back at you angry, it sounded to me, even now, you modulated your language differently because you're such a pro, but it sounded to me that you went to a more maybe potentially slower or soothing tone in your voice, just even
Yeah.
right now when you role played by yourself. Was that just coincidental or did I pick up on something there?
Nah, no, you're picking up on it. I mean, the secret magic skill, like if your tone is great, it's shocking what you can get away with saying.
Mhm.
And it's, slowing down, it's pacing at different points in time. It's whether you're upward inflecting or downward inflecting. And there's so much you could do. Like
Mhm.
it is the magic secret Jedi mind frame because there are
Mhm.
neurological reactions to the tone. And I know what the neurobiology is. So
Mhm.
I practice it all the time. I love making it happen.
Mhm. Very good. This is so deep. Hey guys, I want to talk to you about Shopify. Look, when I started the show, the furthest thing from my mind was doing online business, and now I can't imagine my life without it. So I love Shopify because they're a global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. So whether you're in the startup phase where you're just launching your online store, or you're at that really big business where you're like, hey, we just hit $1 million in order stage, Shopify is there to help you grow. They've helped me through every single stage. I wouldn't even know what to do without them. So whether you're selling shipping supplies or promoting productivity programs, Shopify helps you everywhere, from their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered big time. They help turn browsers into buyers. They convert their checkouts 36% better than all the leading competitors. And I've used them for everything I do online. So every single thing you see that I market online, Shopify is somehow involved. I wouldn't even know what to do without them. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Mylett, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Mylett now to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Mylett. Okay, so those are technical things. Conceptually, you talk a lot about empathy, which surprised me, candidly. You know, you have a presence about you. You have a command presence about you. I think just maybe that's natural. You've obviously worked on it. And one of my biggest criticisms in the world today of all leaders that I see, I wish I saw more empathy, all the way to the top. I mean, I think some of these folks have just tremendous skill sets, yet I don't see a lot of empathy.
We didn't see any last Thursday night.
We did not. You're reading my mind. So we're recording this about a week after the debate that you all have talked about it for sure. This will come out a few weeks after that, but that you're reading my mind. And so, and I've actually had reps from both those guys in my life and told both those guys, man, if you showed a little empathy, I think you'd connect a lot deeper with people. That aside, just in general, that concept, I'm thrilled, is almost like the center of your work almost.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And so can you just talk about it, please? And that, because I think a lot of the stuff people hear, I got to modulate my tone. I don't know if I can do that. But when you say intention matters and empathy matters, now I think a lot of people go, now that I got some of. That I possess as a good human being. So go ahead.
Yeah, well, and I love the phrase you looked earlier, seeing things through a different lens. And empathy is effectively having a clear understanding of the lens. Now, define it very narrowly. Don't equate it to sympathy. Don't equate it to agreement. You know, I mentioned Bob Mnookin before, his book Beyond Winning, best chapter on empathy I've ever read. I mean, better than anything we wrote, Never Split the Difference. Everybody that comes auditions for my team, I have them read several things, Mnookin's chapter, the tension between empathy and assertiveness. And I say, you explain this to me. You tell me what you got out of it. Because I gotta know how far off of empathy you are and how confused you are. And Mnookin says, empathy is not agreeing with the other side. You don't even gotta like them to be able to articulate what their perspective is. Articulating the other person's perspective, not just knowing it, not just understanding what it is, but you got to say it out loud. And the emphasis has to be on their negative thoughts against you. Now, if you can articulate the other person's negative thoughts against you without following up with a, but here's why you're wrong, or any explanation, you will trigger their bonding with you faster than anything else you could do. And it is nearly, it's the lowest maintenance bond. It's just darn near unbreakable when someone feels completely heard. And it'll dissolve arguments in ways that you will be astonished by, like astonished. And if you come, it's just, Stephen Kotler said, empathy is the transmission of information. Compassion is the reaction to that transmission. So you got to really sort it out and separate it from the other, from compassion, from sympathy, from agreement, from liking. If you could do that, you got a superpower that works globally.
This is so good. So good. Rule I was taught since I was young: start getting people to say yes to things. Small yeses will lead to the big yes. And I'm reading your stuff. You're like, no, it doesn't. So is that accurate, that you don't need to get small agreements to build to a big agreement? Or is it the actual word yes in a conversation with somebody?
Yeah, and that's unfortunately, then again, I'll use the term weaponized. Yes has been weaponized against us, and everybody on earth has had that done to them. And I think there was a point in time when that was really effective, but everybody did it. So salespeople since that idea first came up, at least 100 years, Yes, 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 yes. Bang. And timeshare salespeople are doing that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The guy when I was 18 sold me the coupon book for $25, supposed to give me $5,000 in discounts that I still haven't figured out.
Right.
So then the word is an instant trigger. You've been battered.
Mhm.
Now, there's a difference between yes and agreement, because you understand what the difference between yes and agreement is,
Mhm.
and what real agreement. Like when somebody agrees all in, they say that's right, and they don't say yes. So the stupid part of this is, if you could just switch from yes to no, instead of saying do you disagree, you say do you disagree. Instead of saying have you got a few minutes to talk, you say is now a bad time to talk.
Yeah, yeah.
If I can get you to do that, and my company, we've actually developed a list of the top 10 yes-oriented questions, switch to no,
Like it.
because you get the scripting down and you get your repetitions in, and pretty soon you never try to get anybody to say yes, and suddenly your life is accelerated. Like I don't nothing that matters. I
Mhm.
don't We are out of the yes business. I'm constantly going for no. I got less friction in my life across the board.
Mhm.
If I could tell my favorite story, Walter
Right.
O'Brien, the guy that the TV show The Scorpion,
Okay.
Walter O'Brien, one of the smartest guys on planet Earth. His IQ's been tested like second or third highest IQ ever recorded. I know Walter personally. I like him, and he's as smart as he's built to be.
Mhm.
So we're both speaking at a conference. We roll into this restaurant. It's crowded. We're trying to get, five, six of us trying to get a drink, just for happy hour. And there's a roped off section with empty tables. They're not letting anybody sit there. I see Walter walk over and he's talking to the waitress, and I just see the waitress going, and he comes back and he goes, "Yeah, we can't sit down over there." This is a perfect follow up for me. I want to beat the
Yeah.
guy with the highest IQ on
Yeah.
planet Earth.
Right. Right.
I walk up to the waitress and I go, "Would it ruin your entire evening if we sat down at these empty chairs?"
I love it.
And she goes, "No, wouldn't it? You just got to be out here by 6:30. We got reservations at 6:30. It's 4:30 in the afternoon." I'm like, "I guarantee you we're going to be out here in time. We sit right down."
So good, man. I gotta tell you, I got off of this thing on saying yes years ago myself too. I always default to the no. And in
Nice.
terms like, is it like, would it be a total disaster if we sat here for a while? Like, and
Yeah.
almost reduce it to the ridiculous. But also, it's what I love about your work. I'm going to tell everybody this. If you want to be more connected to people, forget persuasion, just connected to people. Or if you do want to be more persuasive, better communicator, better speaker. The reason I like Chris's work is it feels like less work. And it feels like more things you would say anyway in your life, and you don't feel manipulative when you're doing it. Like,
Right.
that is what I would say to somebody. Would it ruin your night if we sat here for a couple hours before everybody like, that is how I would say it naturally, not knowing any of these skills, yet we've all been programmed to somehow think we've got to come in with some overt, covert game plan all the time. Yet these are skills that, and I think the other thing you said is right. Like, some things work, they're just played out now. Like, wouldn't you agree? Thursday or Friday, 6 or 8 p.m. All these things, you hear
Right.
them now from people. You're like, oh, you're doing that thing to me.
Right.
Right. So are you like me? I just cleaned out my closet. Have you ever looked in your closet? You're like, what in the world did I buy that for? It's crazy, right? I got all this stuff in there I never wear. Like, what was I doing? That's why I'm so glad that Quince approached me to sponsor the show. So they sent me some shirts that I've been wearing recently. Love them. These polo shirts that I got and some of these t-shirts that I'm wearing. They're 100% European linen. They're so nice that I'm like, hey, this is stuff I want in my closet. Here's the crazy thing about Quince. You get like 50 to 80% off similar brands from Quince, because what they do is they partner directly with the top factories. So Quince cuts out all the middlemen. They go right from the factory to delivering it to you. I love it. So fill your closet with stuff that you'll be wearing for summers to come that's going to last a long time, that you're proud to wear, and getting it half to better off is awesome. So go to quince.com/ed for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns if you don't like it. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/ed to get free shipping and a 365-day return policy. Quince.com/ed. The biggest thing I wanted to ask you, since I've known you existed, is there a hack to know if someone's telling you the truth or they're lying? Are there things you read, verbal and nonverbal cues, that this person is not being truthful with me, or the contrary, this person is being truthful with me?
Short answer is yes. And everybody, it's contextual. How does a polygraph work? It's not whether or not somebody's lying, it's what they look like when they're telling the truth. And so I need to talk to you long enough to get a draw on you, because when you tell the truth, you pretty much tell the truth one way, period. It's how a good polygrapher is going to ask you a bunch of baseline questions. A good polygraph examination has got to be at least 30 questions. Bunch of baseline questions. What's your name? What day is it? Where are you? What'd you have for breakfast? Draw a beat on what somebody looks like when they tell the truth, if they ever tell the truth. A good polygrapher will come back and say this guy's deceptive across the board. Not, I can't tell you where he's lying or where he's telling the truth. He's always deceiving.
Mm.
So if you tell the truth, you got to lay down a baseline. Now, when they come out of it, it doesn't matter. Do they look up? Do they look down? Did they hold their breath? All you know is they came out of it. So it's not a quick hack.
Yeah, though.
It's
That's
getting the
awesome.
context, which then to some degree, you talked about playing golf before.
Mm-hmm.
Reason why a lot of business relationships are solidified on a golf course, because you spend 8 hours with somebody, you begin to develop a feel for, are they constantly kicking their ball out of the tall grass? And are they, is a gimme always when they're 4 feet from the hole? Is a gimme, it ain't 2 inches from the hole. You get a solid look at somebody over 8 hours. Your gut instinct is lining up. Are they honest ever? And what do they look like when they're being honest? And that's the value of most people, why they want to play golf with people.
Very good.
And how they gonna be a team player? I'm a horrible golfer. And these guys make me go out on a golf course with them about 1.5 years ago. I run out of golf balls. I'm losing so many golf balls. So what am I doing? I'm picking up my ball, so I'm not slowing everybody down. I'm like, I don't want to ruin the afternoon for you guys. I'm not hiding the fact that I'm all over the place, and I'm not complaining. I'm not kicking my ball out of the rough. Half the time I can't find it in the rough. But I think what I showed those guys also is, like, I'm not going to slow the team down based on me doing a lousy job. So, that's a long answer to your question. It's your gut. You're feeding your gut, and what's your gut looking for? What does somebody look like when they're telling the truth?
That's so good. I played golf with a guy I was going to do a deal with. You're just so right. By the way, the guy who kicks his ball and all that, but this dude, it was just, you're right. He had a normal pattern of phraseology, physically, but also his phraseology. And then when you'd ask him his score, like 3 or 4 times in the round, instead of saying, I had a 5 or I had a 7, he would say this to me when he would get in the golf cart: put me down for a 6. You know what I mean? And there's 2 things about that. One, what am I putting you down for something? What did you, and by the way, you had a 9, right? We both know you had a 9, but put me down for a 6. And 2 things occurred to me. One, you're deceptive, right? And 2, you think I'm pretty stupid. You like, and he's the guy at the end of the round. I love this too in golf. At the end of the round, when you're all sitting around having a drink afterwards, you go, what did you shoot? You go, I shot 82 or I shot 93. He actually honestly would tell you, oh, I shot what was ever on that scorecard. I shot 86. I'm like, bro, that's because you got put down for a 6 on 11 different holes. You took a 9. But you're right. You do learn a lot. And I think the takeaway for me there is seeing if there's a pattern interrupt after you see somebody's patterns of how they speak, their eye contact, how they move, phraseology, looking for the eye contact. This is like a masterclass for me. And it's, again, guys, why I recommend Chris's work across the board. I wore a goofy looking shirt today. My show's mainly audio, but I wanted to ask you this as well. I'm wearing a color shirt. I wear black and blue about every day. Like, it's just what I wear: black t-shirt, jeans every day. And I've got different content I got to do today. I'm speaking to some different types of groups. So I've got this like pinky peach shirt on, everybody, if you're listening to audio. I'm wondering if part of connecting with people, if it's going to be in person, is also mirroring them physically and or how you look and dress. Is there any element of that in walking into a negotiation or a persuasive environment? Because for me, sometimes it's disarming if someone's dressed completely differently than everybody else in the room. And I feel like a disconnection when that happens, but I'm curious if that's any part of your work at all.
Weaponizing again. All right. So if you and I are really getting in sync, we're going to find our body language is going to start to line up because we're going to feel really comfortable with each other. Now, there are a lot of people that go like, "Oh, but you, the sooner I could seduce you into what I want. I want a win-win deal that's going to be fair." That guy's going to start mirroring your body language right away. What really matters is, are you actually interested in the other side? So you come in with a clown suit, nothing matches. And the minute you're actually interested in the other person, all the surface stuff goes away.
So it matters, but it doesn't if there's a real connection.
Yeah, go for a real connection. And that's why you find people that, they dress crazy, or none of the demographics seem to line up.
Mm-hmm.
And then when but suddenly they're great friends, and they get along great, and they make great deals together.
Mm.
And you say, like, you guys, guys, general gender agnostic term,
Mm-hmm.
you guys got like nothing in common on the surface, but you're wired similarly underneath. And that's what people are really hoping for.
Very
The
good.
surface stuff is ideally, it's an indicator of what's underneath, the tip of the iceberg. And when you get into what's underneath, that's when people really resonate.
What's the, I got a couple more things for you. What's the, could you share, was there a negotiation that didn't go the right way that you'll never forget?
Yeah. Oh,
Really?
yeah, of course. I mean, hostage negotiators got a batting average about 93% success rate. So you start climbing over double digits, at some point in time, something's going to go bad.
Mm.
It's just the way it is. And the first one the first really bad, tough one that happened was in the Philippines after a huge success. The Schilling case was a monumental success. Left the bad guys in a shambles. Their organization was, their hierarchy was out of shape. They didn't get they got no ransom. Nobody got killed, and the hostage walked away. And, it's like a Super Bowl team.
Yeah.
They win a championship, then they don't want to play together the following year because everybody's resentful that they didn't get enough credit for the championship. So roll back into the Philippines, another subsequent case, and like nobody's cooperating. Like and unfortunately, it was the anniversary of the ending of that case, Burnham-Sabero case. A lot of people got killed. Martin Burnham got killed by friendly fire at the end. His wife Grace is still alive. Got two phenomenal books out about her experience. One is In the Presence of My Enemies, and the other is To Fly Again. And I happened to be reviewing that, and it was the anniversary of the end of that recently, and that was a mess. And when it finally ended with a botched rescue attempt, two of the three remaining hostages getting shot by friendly fire. Gracia got shot through the leg. I mean, to me, that was I had not lost anybody that I was responsible for up to that period in time. And I remember thinking my boss, mentor, Gary Nessner's words, best chance of success, highest batting average, communication skills that work more than anything else, still don't work all the time. And the acceptance that you can't make every deal. The acceptance, there are some people, it's not a sin to not get the deal. It's a sin to take a long time to not get the deal. Just the acceptance of that reality, and then getting crushed by it. And I, how I was harmed by it professionally matched up in no way, shape, or form to what the families went through.
Yeah.
And I actually was, when I finally realized, what do you got to complain about? It wasn't your father, wasn't your brother that got killed. So yeah, there are failures, and post-traumatic stress growth is what you're looking for after you get crushed.
Wow, what a great answer. All right, I guess last question. I'd go 3 hours with you. I wish the show was 3 hour show, because I feel like I've asked you like three things that of the 300 I've always wanted to ask you. So maybe we'll do this again as well. But just a simple thing that I've always wondered, and take your time on this. Can you make a good deal with a bad person? In other words, they just have bad intent. Should more people just, I'm thinking about this thing I was describing to you with me, right? This situation I'm going through. I'm like, should I just walk? Because I'm trying to deal in integrity and honesty and, above board to some extent. I know not to say that to him because, you've talked about these different phrases, and I just kind of know they're not. Yet I'm sitting here, and I think a lot of people relate to this. I'm like, yeah, but I could still find middle ground. I played baseball with guys on my team who hit a lot of home runs who weren't great dudes and we didn't get along, but they helped the team and we made good things happen together. But the more and more I see people trying to bond and connect with a person in their relationship who's just not in it like they are, or they're trying to make a business deal with somebody who's just their intent is to win and you lose. Can you still make deals with those people once you know that? And if you can, how?
So my definition of a great deal requires a great long-term relationship of trust.
Mm.
So can you have a great marriage with a cheating spouse?
Mm.
Now, you may have some great, crazy, wild nights with that cheating spouse, and eminently satisfying, and it ain't going to last.
Mm.
So my answer is no. No matter how lucrative the deal is in the moment, it's going to cost you long-term. It's going to be blood money. It's going to hurt. You're going to regret it. You're going to wish you'd never done, no matter how much you made in the interim. In the early days of Black Swan, we had a business relationship with a company where I knew the president of the company was lying and deceiving to me. At that point in time, the short-term upside, we got some development of my people. We got some training development. We learned a lot in a year and a half, 2 years. We were together, and I knew it was going to come to an end. And I stayed in it only because I made that business decision at the time. But I wasn't kidding myself to it coming to an end. And it came to an end badly. And there was resentment that probably still exists to this day. Now, that's the only time. Don't kid yourself. There's an old metaphor, the frog and the scorpion crossing a river. The scorpion wants a ride and says to the frog, like, look, if I stab you while we're going across the river, we both die. That would be a bad thing for me to do. Frog buys into the malarkey, and halfway across the river, the scorpion stings him and they both drown. And the frog says, why? This is hurting you as much hurting me. And the scorpion says, because I'm a scorpion, and that's what we do. Yeah. The scorpion is always going to be a scorpion. The whatever that creature is, no matter what they say to you, don't expect them to turn into anything different. Don't kid yourself about it. Don't expect it to be a long-term relationship.
Everybody, I ask questions sometimes that I already feel strongly about the answer for, and I can tell you at 53 years old, what this man just said is 25 billion% correct. A scorpion will eventually be a scorpion, and it's better to pull out earlier than it is too late, because usually those stings become more and more deadly and terminal the longer term and bigger your relationship becomes with them. That's been my experience. So you were right, Chris. This was such a good ride today, brother. It was so good, and I'm grateful for it. And I want, I do a lot of podcasts. I don't usually promote the person's work 4 or 5 times throughout, but it's just made such an impact on me. So I do want people to go get Never Split the Difference. You should go do that. And what is your Instagram? Because that's where you want them to find you socially, right? That's usually where they should go.
Yeah. At the FBI Negotiator.
Yeah.
The FBI Negotiator. And we post a lot of stuff on there, putting a lot of content, stuff you could use. And we'll tell you about stuff we're doing. We're gonna want you to jump into our training with us. So that's a good place to go.
So good, you guys. Chris, thank you for today. Hey, everyone, I don't have to ask you to do it. You're going to share this one all over the place. This was a great conversation. I'm very grateful for it. Chris Voss, thank you so much. God bless you, everybody. Max out.